r/AskReddit. Ladies of Reddit, how did a guy ruin their chances with you? There was a guy, I'll call him James, in high school who had a crush on me for years. I only knew James liked me because all his friends told me. James wasn't a shy guy, he was hella intelligent and quite confident. Except around me, he was super shy. I get he found it hard to talk to me face to face, and he kept texting me in the middle of the night every Friday, like 3 AM, telling me he wants to kiss me, and that I should go to his house yada yada. I never replied cause, well, I was asleep. I did actually develop feelings for him later on. He was smart, funny, nice and good looking. Then in my final year of school, at the start of the year, Feb, James was still texting me all the same old stuff. I was sick of the lame texts asking if I was a virgin and him telling me he wanted to kiss me, nothing of real substance. I grew tired of it and stopped replying to his texts. This was around the time that my, not then, boyfriend from school was showing interest in me, and that was turning into something, and he became more interested once he found out James had been interested in me. Probs a competition thing. Fast forward to June that year, I actually found out that James had been texting another girl in our year level and had a thing with her while he was telling me how much he wanted to be with me. I wasn't friends with her per se, more acquaintances if anything. I chatted to her at a party about James because she found out about how he was texting me. She was so mad at him and went and confronted him at the party. By this stage I'd moved on and was in the early stages of a relationship with my now ex-boyfriend. James was a nice guy at school who turned into a player. He also became more interested in being cool, drinking, smoking, dipshit friends and drugs than his education, and setting himself up for his future. His geeky and cute intelligence was the reason I was attracted to him. Once he started valuing his education less and less, I lost total interest. Last I heard he dropped out of university and wasn't doing much with himself. Yeah, I finally have one. Went on a date with a guy after slipping him my number. My car broke down and he was the tow truck driver and he was cute. Ended up texting for a few days and then went out for a date. First weird thing, he didn't order any food. He said he wasn't hungry. Weird, but not a deal breaker. Then like 5 minutes before I was done eating he tried to order food, but the kitchen was closed. He then tried to argue with the waitress about it. This is where I was starting to get iffy. I've worked in retail and customer service all my life, so someone being rude to an employee is a total turn off. On top of this, he kept talking about and bragging about how much money he makes. The money thing comes in later. He walks me home and he tries to kiss me, but I don't hold hands on first dates, let alone kiss. He was considering grabbing a cab home since my car was in the shop and I don't remember why he didn't have his. He said he would text me when he was home. He lived like way down the street from me and it should have taken him 30 to 45 to walk home. He texts me in 15 minutes saying he's home. I say back quote, "Oh, you got a cab?" He says no, I rode a bike. I asked him if he had rode his bike to the restaurant and didn't want to tell me and he said no. He then texts me this: "On my way home I saw a bike in someone's yard. I was tired of walking, so I took it and rode it home and now it's mine." I then wonder to myself back quote, if he has so much money, why didn't he just call a cab instead of stealing a bike? Red flag for lying. I asked him to confirm back quote, "So you stole a bike?" And he said back quote, "Not really, it was in the front yard and they left it there, so it's their fault." I exchanged pleasantries for another text or two and then didn't text back. He texts me a couple days later with a back quote, and I let him know that the reason we weren't going to go out anymore is because he stole some kid's bike and that kid is probably devastated. He got mad at me and I ignored it. TLDR, guy stole a bike after our date, after spending the date bragging about money and then said it was the bike owner's fault for leaving it out in the open. If you're gonna steal a bike, first of all, don't, and second of all, don't tell your date about it. I'm a girl, but my best story has to do with another girl, not a guy. We were at her place after going on several dates and enjoying some really hot chemistry. The plan was to hang out, have some dinner, and then hit the sack. I had no car at the time and got dropped off. So, we have a pretty fair meal along with her roommates, who were a couple, separate from us. chilling around the living room, having some drinks, and passing a blunt. All good. She had told me that she was a free-spirited hippie type, and I was by no means against a little weed and alcohol in an enjoyable night in. Well, the couple roommates bring out some other stuff. It was ketamine, and they had various pills and other stuff that I didn't then, and don't now, have any ability or interest in identifying. I sort of get a tight feeling in my chest. Drugs like that have a way of triggering me for a lot of reasons, and I basically want it out. So she, my interest, snorts some K and asks me if I want some. I make some line about how I'm already feeling good from the drink/weed. It's all good, thinking to myself, shit, I'm basically stuck here. I had been having that good/fun feeling of ooh, soon we will be cuddling more and probably having some awesome sexual stuff going on, and it turned to I wanna gtfo in an instant. Think of a delightfully moist cake turning into the Gobi Desert. Well, at any rate, she snorted the K and thanked the stars she still seemed coherent enough and didn't go into some sort of K-hole. So a little time goes by and she makes the let's get ourselves to bed ovations at me. I agree because there's really nothing else to do and the couple roomies have started mildly couple bickering. I know now that one of them was Xanaxed out but had just figured that he was tired or drunk. No, he had that head nod going on. So we set up in her room to get into bed. I was at this point still buzzed and just really wanted to lay the F down and sleep. She goes out to use the bathroom and blam bam wham, the fighting starts. She's getting into it with the female roommate while Xanaxed dude is groaning for them to shut up. It's yelling and furniture moving all around. And holy shit lol, me trapped in bedroom in an upper apartment without even the ability to jet out the window. More yelling is exchanged. It gets utterly silent. I perk my ears up for signs of life, and nope, nothing. Then I realize that they are quiet arguing out in the kitchen. I grab my cell phone and text a friend to come get me right now, and figure it'll be about 15 minutes till they arrive, so I have to make sure to stay safe in that time frame. About 10 minimums go by, and the girls have evidently made amends, and are chatting in the kitchen, both blitzed on who on earth knows drugs but pretty sedate. I make like I have to pee, with my coat and purse in hand. They just sort of laugh at me, as if I were an unexpected guest on a TV show. I leave the bathroom and haul ass down the stairs to my waiting ride. 0/0 would do again. Blocked her on all social media, never got a text or phone call. I learned last year that her drug behavior escalated into hard territory and she overdosed on all that when it seemed like I was going to have a nice fun lesbian sleepover. Ooh boy. When I was in high school, this dude made it very clear he was interested in me, through hints. He never outright said it, and I would always hint back that I wasn't interested, primarily because I had a pretty serious boyfriend at the time. Boyfriend and I break up. This dude who'd been trying to put the moves on me becomes incessant, and I start trying to distance myself, making as little conversation with him as possible, ignoring his texts sometimes, and basically doing whatever I could to make him understand I did not like him in any way, while trying to keep the tenuous threads of my various friend groups unbroken. This all comes to a head one week in early spring. He's in photography class and has taken to carrying his camera around with him everywhere. On Monday of this week, he gets special permission from the coach to come to the gym and do some in-motion photography for a project during his photography period, which just so happened to be my phys ed period. I didn't mind this too much. My friends and I just walked laps around the gym while he was up in the stands, blessedly far away. Suddenly, as we round a corner, he literally jumps down from the bleachers, snaps a picture of us, me, and walks away without saying a word, then leaves the gym very soon after. Then, no word or acknowledgement from him for about 3 days. Friday that week, he walks up to me while I'm waiting for a friend to finish at her locker so we can walk to class together, places a handmade envelope with my name on it on top of the stack of books I was holding, opens his mouth to say something, and then just power walks away from me as quickly as possible. Inside was probably the most wild love letter I have ever read in my life. It was 2 front and back pages of very small, straight handwriting written on sketchbook paper, detailing the first time he'd ever seen me, how he knew from that moment forward he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me, described the softness of my skin, which he had never touched before, the angle of my jaw, how our wedding would play out, down to the color palette in my dress. And the names of our kids. But the worst part? An extremely accurate pencil drawing of me in his art style on the last page, sitting at a desk concentrating on something. It's the worst part, because we had never had a class together at this point, and the only pictures he had of me were in gym class. He literally imagined me in this pose, and drew it off the dome, and every line was detail perfect. He never spoke to me again. I met this guy in community college who I thought was really cute. I was an awkward, gangly girl who didn't know how to flirt, though. We actually became friends though, and we often would hang out with the same group of friends. One day he and I ended up getting sent on a fast food run for our group during a library study session. In the car, he suddenly interrupts something I was saying to ask, "So why haven't we been on a date yet?" I sort of froze. I was happy he asked, but awkward me had no idea what to say because the words got stuck in my throat. Well, I apparently waited a second too long because he changed his tune. He got irritated and said, paraphrased because I don't have perfect memory, "Oh, I see. It's fine. You don't have to find a way to let me down easy. I thought you'd rest like a slut all the time because you wanted me, but maybe you're just a fucking whore. It's too bad, really. I would have treated you like a human being." I tried to explain I was just nervous, but he wasn't having it. He called me a number of other names and then just shut down. This was a 19-year-old dude who threw a tantrum like a 12-year-old. After that day, he suddenly didn't hang out with us nearly as much anymore. He pretended I didn't exist. The idiot will never know I would have said yes to a date if he'd just had a few more seconds of patience. Bullet dodged. Edit. Holy shit, did this get a lot of replies. Let me try to answer the majority of them here. A lot of people referred me to r/Nase guys. I'm already subbed, but since this is just a college story from like 7 years ago without any pics for proof, I don't think it'd work. Plus I already got 1000% more karma here than I thought I'd get, so I wouldn't want to try and be greedy. Speaking of proof, a few people think it's just a lie. I mean, I have no way to convince anyone this happened, except to give more details. Our group was actually a club at the school. Someone had the damn genius idea to found a geek club. We got together on Wednesdays for a few hours and played card games like MTG and Munchkin, watched anime, drew, played video games, etc. We were a club of about 50 people varied in ages from 18 to 40. This guy was a member for nearly 6 months and then stopped showing up. He was a sore MTG loser too. As for the 19-year-old acting like a 12-year-old comment, I just meant that this was a man who should be starting to mature even a little, who was still being the type of dramatic known to be associated with preteens. Just putting this one here to say thank you for all the replies and stories. I'm reading every single one. Was chatting with a guy on a Cupid when I was active on it. Super cute, amazing body, seemed like a cool guy and gentleman. We were getting around to the point where we were going to establish a date, and he suggests going for a walk in the park at night. Okay, red flag number 1. Maybe he's just trying to be romantic. I say let's meet somewhere in public first, so we can get to know each other a little bit, and suggested a popular bar/restaurant in the area. He suggests maybe a movie and to take that walk later on. Okay. So to summarize, he's not only suggested the sketchiest thing ever for a first date with an internet stranger, but is also now ignoring me giving him a perfect out, and continue to insist on it. Finally he says, sure, if you're more comfortable we can meet in public. What's your address, so I can pick you up? So I tell him have a car, actually, I can just meet him wherever we decide to meet. Meanwhile I'm already feeling annoyed and suspicious and halfway want to cancel this plan we haven't even made. He starts getting super pushy about it, saying he's a gentleman and he would never dream of letting me drive myself while he could pick me up, and again tells me to give him my address so he knows where he can come get me. At that point I'm done. If I have to work that hard to try to convince you to not be a fucking creeper, it's probably not going to end up well for me. Ended up having to not respond and block after the insistence of getting my address. Thank God I never agreed to anything or gave him any of my info. Edit. I want to clarify, since I'm getting a lot of replies to the effect of "you're overreacting." He was probably trying to be a gentleman. It wasn't just a walk in the park. It was a walk in the park at night. He emphasized that and insisted on it. Even after I stated that I would be more comfortable meeting somewhere public and populated. He wasn't just offering to pick me up. He was repeatedly asking me for my home address after I said I would have been fine meeting him somewhere in public. I'm also seeing some replies from dudes who are concerned that they made someone feel unsafe by offering to pick them up. As a courtesy, offering a ride is totally fine, but you also have to be fine with the fact that not everyone is going to want to do that and accept it the first time you hear it. Edit 2. Thanks to everyone responding with your support. It means a lot, and it helps when processing these incidents to know that a majority of people would agree with me if they experienced the same thing. And to all the people replying with similar experiences, I'm so sorry this happened to you, and never feel bad about trusting your gut. Also, thanks for the silver. Fucking okay, Cupid. I'm starting to think something similar happened with this guy I was chatting with. Extremely handsome, really bubbly and upbeat. Seemed really passionate about his career and future and just had one of those warm, charming smiles. I was honestly surprised he matched me. We start talking, and he immediately asks for my number, which I held off giving to him but eventually conceded. Whoops. He begins texting me constantly through my phone and the app. Always variations of "I miss you," "Are you there?" "Wish we could meet up," etc. When I had a couple overnight shifts and couldn't text him, it was "I can't believe you're leaving me so soon after we just met." He asked me 3 times where I lived. Not just the specific address, but the general city, which was displayed on my profile. Then he asked to see photos of me, and when I again directed him to my profile he said, "What? You don't have any other photos besides those?" Then kept following up with, "I still haven't seen those pictures yet." Then, he refused to have me drive to him. I offered several times and he insisted, which at the time I took as a green flag, that he didn't want to lock me up in his basement or something. He kept forgetting what I'd told him, always pushing to meet up in the morning, even though I repeated several times that I had work in the morning. He'd forget and ask me the same thing the next day, consistently. His whole demeanor was very weird, half unsettling and half botish. The funny thing was I ultimately didn't even have to block him to get him off my back. He was pushing to come to my place for like the 6th time and I mentioned my roommate, not even to test his response. I just had casually thrown in something about her work schedule. He completely switched gears and asked if she'd be there. I answered that she most likely would be as she worked from home most of the time. Never heard from him again. I'm in college and Facebook has just recently come out. A handsome guy sitting next to me at the computers in the campus library introduces himself. Around 10 minutes later I get a friend request from the handsome guy. My name is unusual, so I was fairly easy to find. He starts flirt chatting with me on Facebook until it's time for me to leave the library. This flirt chatting continues for another couple of days before he asks if I want to have dinner with him. I say yes and then tell him to meet me at my dorm/apartment on campus. I want my roommates to meet him first and then run interference if they have a bad feeling about him. He gets to the apartment where he begins to brag about all the money he just inherited and how he's so frugal. He doesn't even go to college here. He just uses the library because it's free. I'm looking at my friend and she is giving me the signal that she's not into this guy. Me either. He continues bragging about himself before he asks me if I have a car. I say yes, and he said me too, I have a blah 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 some car that's supposed to impress me. He then follows it up with wanna race. I look at my friend and she laughs and says yes. Before I could even get a word out, we get out to the parking lot where he crawls under his car and does something with the pipe/muffler area. He either added or removed something. He told me he shares this car with his mom and she doesn't like whatever he was doing to it. My friend is giggling the entire time. We get in our cars and drive over to a vacant parking lot and line up, side by side. My friend in my passenger seat is at this point laughing uncontrollably. We both step on the gas. He heads straight for the end of the lot. I turn left at the exit and drive away. Me and my friend sat in the McDonald's parking lot laughing at my situation for a couple of hours until we were certain he was gone. He was so full of himself and very obviously a liar. I was not born wealthy and money was not important to me. But he talked about it non-stop, attempting to impress me. You could tell none of what he was saying was true. To this day, almost 15 years later, my friend will randomly text me, "Wanna race?" I've told this one before, but I was 16, almost 17, and he was *17 almost 18. We met at work and immediately clicked. Me, being the romantic that I'm, fell for him hook, line, and sinker. He wrote me notes, drove me everywhere, etc. Met my family and everyone loved him. We all went to this big fair in our town with my parents and a few of their friends, and some of our friends met up with us there. Having a great time until I'm standing next to him and this woman come up and throws me down to the ground screaming at me. Chaos entails. She's hitting him, screaming at me. Everyone's thinking she's some crazy nutbag and everyone's yelling. My dad's friend, who is loud and intimidating, yells for everyone to stop. So, it turns out she's his wife and he's 27 years old. My dad loses his damn mind, as any dad might, when their daughter is being attacked by crazy wife and lead to, and tells him he's going to have him arrested for rape. We hadn't had sex yet, so I'm mortified telling my dad I'm still a virgin in the midst of all this insane commotion, and my dad's friend is holding him back and tells my now ex to GTFO there before my dad kills him. I'm bawling, mortified, embarrassed, etc. Everyone's reassuring me I was totally the victim, etc. trying to console me. My little 16-year-old innocent heart was shattered. He of course quits working where we worked and 3 weeks later shows up telling me he is divorcing his wife for me and asking me to leave with him and he'll take care of me, blah blah blah. Well, guess whose dad was picking her up from work that day? He happened to show up to the end of my shift. My dad pulls up, sees John talking to me, gets out of his car and starts chasing him. My dad is chasing this man around the fast food building where I worked as cars are going in and out. I'm again mortified and just yelling at my dad to stop so we can leave, and my dad is yelling to anyone who would listen that this man is a child molester and tried to rape me, and John eventually just runs down the street and keeps going. Never saw him again, lol. I met a guy on POF. It was my first time ever using a dating site. I was new to the area and wanted to meet new people outside of my only girlfriend I had known from living in Florida prior. I wanted to meet people outside of my comfort zone. He picked me up in a really cool old school 1960s Corvette. He was attractive and tall. Conversation is going great. We arrive at the restaurant. He tells me he can't drink due to a concussion and I should order a drink if I wanted. I ordered a martini and we got to chit-chatting some more. This is when shit gets weird. He tells me the reason for his concussion is that he is a semi-pro wrestler for Ike, Insane Clown Posse. I knew of Ike as a music group who painted their faces like clowns and rapped. The entire date was him showing me videos of himself wrestling on YouTube. He asked if I liked his beard. It was kind of like a chin strap type facial hair. Being polite, I told him it looked nice. He told me he spent an hour drawing on his beard for our date. I ordered a second martini. He goes on to tell me about his wrestling character who he made up himself. It was a guy who smokes meth and acts psycho in the ring tweaking out. He shows me more YouTube videos. Seriously, a fucking hour and a half of YouTube videos of him wrestling at Ike matches. I order an third martini. He makes a comment about me ordering another drink. I assume because he doesn't want me racking up a tab. The martinis are $8. No biggie. I was more than happy to pay for my meal and drinks. He actually assumed I wanted to go back to his house and watch a movie. Possibly more wrestling videos? It's a hard no from me. I text my girl SOS, and she comes to the restaurant to rescue me. When she comes to get me, he freaks out, makes a scene, and tells me I was using him for a free meal, flips the patio chair and table in a Hulk-like rage. Me and my girl run to her car and the next hour was him rage messaging me via POF. I gave up on meeting new people on dating sites after that. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.